Welcome to Mine EX-Plorers, episode 25, where we're in the backyard with Chris Guenther again.
Good to see you, folks.
It's good to have Chris back. Last time we had such a good time with the interview and we covered a lot of topics, and it ended up being one of our most watched episodes, so definitely good to have you back.
It's good to be back. One of the themes that I want to talk about in this, the two big themes that are running through my head are this time it's different ? In terms of macroeconomics and commodities, and like finding your tribe.
Right.
One of the reasons that I am so stoked that you guys ended up hiring me away from Better Accounting is this industry is fascinating, but the vast majority of people are like, look at you like you're sort of an alien when you're in this, unless they're part of the sector somehow. So it's nice to not feel like an alien around you guys, or we can be aliens together.
Right.
Like I just saw Barry Manilow in concert a couple days ago.
All right.
Which was really interesting. And one of the things he said was how much of a misfit he felt like until he found his tribe. Because he was a music guy, and he was like, and when I found that there were other people like me and we started doing things together, his quote was like, misfits aren't misfits when they're together. And I also think one of the secrets of success and satisfaction in life is like being willing to let yourself be who you are and love the things you love until you find other people that are like, yeah, me too. And that's a different level of satisfaction than sort of conforming to fit in, but not really being able to share your passion.
Right.
Because the people you're around are like, well, that's okay, whatever, right? Like it's nice to be with people like you and I, Stu, have discussions I don't really have with other people, because we love this crazy industry.
It's a crazy industry,
and how it works from A to Z, and we find it fascinating. And we're not just talking to someone who's patiently waiting for us to finish the weird thing we're talking about.
Right.
We're both into it.
They're looking for an exit. Yeah, they're looking over your shoulder.
I 100% can resonate with all of that, because it's so funny. Like, you'll talk to your friends outside of business or the sector, and then they'll be like, what the hell are you even talking about?
Totally.
And then like you get friends within the sector, and like you'll talk for hours just about mining. It's like so much fun. Yeah, it's hilarious.
So kind of along those lines with finding your tribe, a really interesting thing I saw from Jim Carrey was he equated that when people get depressed, it's because they've invented a character or version of themselves that their body and mind is just tired of being. So a lot of people, I think, they invent a version of themselves that they think will fit in better instead of connecting with their true self. And that causes a lot of unease eventually, and causes people to be really uncomfortable. And I think that applies to a lot of things, like people trying to be in different social circles or have interests that they don't really have, but also like professional interests and even just hobbies and stuff. Like, mining isn't the kind of thing that's really mainstream, and you're not going to go to a party and have a bunch of people go, wow, that's so cool, like, being a crypto bro. But at the same time, like, you can find your tribe, and turns out there's like 400 conferences a year where you can go connect with other people in the mining industry if you really look for them. So,
True.
Yeah, there was a similar quote. That's cool that we're on the same wavelength. There was a similar quote I heard. So I joined a men's group called Man Talks, and the guy that runs it's Connor Beaton, and he posts really cool stuff on YouTube. And one of his recent shorts he posted was that the most common form of depression is trying to be someone that you're not.
Yep. It's right along those lines.
Same thing, right? Yep. And I think the thing that we really crave, the moments where we really feel alive and connected with life and other people, are when we allow ourselves to bare our soul enough where the other person really sees not who we are to fit in, but like who we are in that raw, powerful, unfiltered state. And when we do that with someone who's like, I see your beauty, I see your uniqueness, and I love it. Like, I love the song you're singing, I'm down. That's a different level of connection and completeness.
Right.
And you can't have that if you're just hiding and pretending, because what if? So I think a lot of life is having the courage to be you
Yeah.
until you find your groove, find your tribe, and can make it at least part of your life, fulfillment around that.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, people want to see, I mean, people know when you're not being authentic, right? Like it's easy to be a chameleon, but also like it does come through as just being inauthentic, and then people just will eventually see it, and then nobody's happy, right? So kind of going back to your point, like just be who you are and find the groups that accepts that. And not everyone's going to like you, and that's fine. That is totally okay. You know, you just got to be true to who you are, because at the end of the day, it's you who matter, right? Like making peace with yourself is the most important thing you can do.
100%.
Yeah, like I'd rather be alone than have a million friends who I have to put on a different hat for.
Right, know? Like the root of
exhausting.
the root of every form of therapy is, can you accept yourself?
Yeah.
And all the parts of you. Not that you give them the keys to the car and let them go wild, because maybe there's stuff to work out there and there's someone, but can you love yourself as you are? Because if you can, you're already so far ahead of the curve.
Yep. It's true. Very true.
Yeah, I talked last episode about how I took the 4th of July this year to celebrate independence from alcohol. I decided I was just done drinking. And part of it's along those lines. So, like, one of the big reasons that I came up with not to quit is like, oh, I'll be less social and I want to hang out with less people and things like that, which is true. But then I think about, like, all of the experiences having the people I'm hanging out with. Would I have done that sober? And the answer is no most of the time. So it's like, well, then why am I doing it anyway? Like, what's the point? Like, just to have a bunch of friends? I don't really need that. And even at like these conferences and stuff, like, get a little socially awkward, want a few drinks to loosen up, but then have too many and have a bunch of conversations that nobody remembers anyway. It's like, then there's plenty of people there you can connect with and have great conversations anyway. It just takes a little more work. Whereas alcohol maybe is the easy button. Like, I'm just going to have a few drinks and get through the night. Whereas, like, intentionally showing up to engage and connect with people, you do so much better in the long run. But, you know, it's a little awkward and you have to be yourself, and that takes practice.
Yeah.
Just take practice to be yourself, yes.
Yeah.
I know in the men's work movement, like, it's not that you can't drink or that drinking is looked down on, but it's like, why and how much.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, I think for the world at large, alcohol is the easy button
Yep.
to kind of get out of your head and relax and sort of be in the flow. But if you can practice and learn how to get there by being authentic, right, and just being yourself and getting more and more comfortable being yourself, it's way better. And you don't have all these nasty side effects. You don't have hangovers. You don't have, wow, I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe I did that, or,
Yeah.
you know, like, it's like practicing consciousness, practicing being yourself, like, that's the cheat code to like really leveling up in life.
Right. And yeah, it isn't the easiest thing, but if you do it consistently, the rewards are so much higher. So yeah, it's like anything, consistency, hard work.
Consistency compounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on that theme of like being yourself, how cool is it that us goofballs like love this industry at a time where not a lot of people do.
Right.
And in a meaningful way, as a team, we're contributing to solving the challenges of mining, to solving supply chain issues, at least in some small way. Maybe at some point it'll lead into something even bigger, but we're doing what we can
Yep.
to solve something that, even though the world kind of wants to ignore it, like, sorry, but the world is built on this stuff.
Yep.
So we got to do it, and we got to do it right.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're connected to every part of this critical minerals supply chain discussion, from aggregates, which is required to build all infrastructure, including data centers, power infrastructure, all those things, to copper. I mean, deep involvement with copper across the whole segment, from, advancing projects like Resolution to Greenfield, staking, sampling, things like that. And then, we're tied in, really heavily with a lot of the rare earth stuff that's going on. We're doing a lot of work with the big major company that's been in the news a whole bunch, that's getting all this funding. Longtime client, really happy to support them. And then, things like antimony, like we're at the forefront, like cutting edge, brand new projects, new discoveries. It's really exciting, and it's small ways, but I think it all adds up to contribute in bigger ways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're on the front end of exploration, and being in the mining industry, we know how long that timeline is. Like, we know, so we want our critical minerals now, but we understand, being in the sector, we understand that you have to start about 20, 30 years before you want them, start just looking for them, doing the exploration for them, and eventually you'll get there. But
Right. Like, just in time works in manufacturing if you have all of the inputs queued up and ready.
Right.
It is the opposite in mining. The
Yep.
process of finding it to getting it out of the ground, you have to think so far in advance.
So far.
And be so persistent.
Yep.
And committed for decades.
Yep.
It's a whole different mindset. It's
Oh,
like you have to think
yeah.
in geologic time terms,
You
and
do.
human beings just generally aren't wired that
Well,
way.
we're not patient enough, right? So
Right.
just being in, especially on the exploration front, you have to be extremely patient, and you have to just roll with the punches and the administration changes, and just be like, okay, I'm not in it for the next 4 years until the next president comes in. I'm in it for the next 40 years so I can actually get this mine into production and jump through all of the million hurdles along the way. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to keep that funding going, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even that, like, all the regulatory hurdles and everything aside, just the odds of making an economic discovery in any commodity, aside from like the most basic stuff, the odds are awful to start with. So if you want to start an antimony mine, for example, you may have to go look at 50 different greenfield, brownfield sites to finally find one that's got the right economics, the right infrastructure, and then all the regulatory stuff comes into play. So that long-term thinking, I mean, even if you go to like a war footing and you're like, there's no red tape, there's no funding limitations, find and develop a uranium deposit, for example. Like, we need it now. No hurdles, no funding limitations. And even with that, like, there's still, like, we'd have to go out, like, if somebody called us, the Pentagon called us and said, hey, we need you to start a uranium mine in 6 months. And you have no limits. You can buy somebody, you can do all that. Like, just to narrow down and figure out who we would purchase, because we'd likely purchase somebody with an advanced project that's close to production or in production. Yeah. Even that process could take 6 months just to decide like who is best positioned, and then go from there. But in other commodities that aren't as advanced, like a good example's some of these lighter rare earths that we don't produce at all in the United States. Just knowing where to look and what makes economic sense and how to do the processing and everything, that all takes a long time, regardless of the hurdles. Yeah. And then there is the financing aspect. So in this theoretical scenario, it's DOD money, blank checks, doesn't matter. But in real life, with every exploration cycle, half of your C-suite and your exploration team is trying to chase the money to tell the story to make the next discovery, and which is taking them away from doing the actual work.
Mm-hmm. That's why we have so many shows. That's why there's so many trade shows, so they can go out fishing
Yeah.
and getting some money.
Yeah, because it's a small and decreasing pool of interested investors,
Yeah.
in spite of these just crazy tailwinds for the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting close to $40 silver,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's
that's a
interesting.
big psychological barrier. If we can get above that and stay there, I think that's where things really take off from.
Going back to like the frustration of like trying to keep your resource exploration company financed until you can get to one of these magic spots. A stat that Rick Rule brings up all the time is if you took all of the mining companies in the world, or even just Canada, and you turned it into one super mining co, as a group, they lose billions. They burn through billions of dollars a year. So it's like there is so much that ends up getting wasted trying to find the right deposit, and then hopefully the locals are okay with it, and hopefully you could, right? But the winds are so good, thank heavens, that it keeps us from just going, well, heck with it. We'll just go back 200 years in our development and say, forget it, right? Like, just forget about the modern world, forget about AI, forget about tech. We'd have to let go of all that stuff.
Let's just kowtow to China and say, we'll do whatever you want, just give us all of our cheap minerals.
Right.
Well, and that's what we're essentially doing right now.
Right.
You know, so the fact that we're talking about it as a, you know, we want to break that dependency on China is a good start, but I mean, it's going to take.
Well, and it's interesting
It's gonna take a
because
long time.
we're taking a cue from China that just letting the market play out may not be the best strategy, because now globalization is reversing, we're deglobalizing, we care about supply chain security. So if we're serious about them not having all the power, particularly in rare earths, like that's a big one, lithium market's a big one too, a lot of these, then we have to do a little nationalization. We've got to get a little more activist as a government to help these industries thrive, or else it just may take too long, and then we could find ourselves in a really difficult spot.
Yeah, I mean, the libertarian in me cries when I see the nationalization, the federal government taking a direct stake in mining companies and setting a price floor on things. But on the flip side, you're competing with China, which has no rules. They do what they want. And so you have to meet in the middle a little bit, and I see the need for it, especially in terms of rare earths. So I feel like lithium, I feel like a lot of the other critical minerals will come along and they'll sort themselves out. Because lithium, we have a lot of great lithium deposits in the United States. We're discovering more all the time. I'm really excited about what's going on in the Smackover and, you know, these deep brines in the southeastern United States. We still have Thacker Pass. We've got great spodumene. We've got a lot in Canada and then other friendly countries. So things like lithium we can sort out, but rare earths just don't make economic sense anywhere but China, because they subsidize everything. But they're such a critical thing that to compete or make it work, you really have to have some sort of subsidization. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Right, because we need them, we can't make it about economics. It's like we got to do what we got to do to make sure we have access, or certain pieces of technology, unless we are going to be able to re-engineer them with different, easier to find materials really, really fast, we're going to lose that. We won't be able to make a bunch of the high-tech stuff. And the defense industry cares a whole lot, because neodymium, dysprosium, a lot of these like rare earth things, like they need them in some of these very specialized pieces of equipment that do these amazing things. That goes away if we don't have it. So they're like, yeah, don't care if we make money on this. We need the stuff.
Right.
Get me the stuff here. Just here's the money, produce it, right?
Right. And at the end of the day, like the amount of money required to secure those supply chains is pretty minimal.
Yeah.
Like we're not talking about
yeah, you look at the
trillions of
scope
dollars.
of the GDP and the budget, it's nothing.
Right.
It is nothing.
It's big to us because it's such a capital starved industry, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's nothing. Yeah.
And it may have changed, but for a long time, the entire market cap of the mining industry was less than Apple alone.
It still is, yeah.
It probably still is. Now, the interesting thing is, and this is the other theme that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is this time it's different, ?
Right. Yes. Let's get
Right?
into that.
This time it's different. So usually in investing and other things, when people say this time it's different, it means that they're assuming that a trend will go to the moon, right? So it's fine to chase Bitcoin near the top of a cycle because it's different. It's going to go forever.
Right.
And that's usually the sign that retail is about to get trashed by cyclicality.
Right.
Right. And so, but my thinking of this time it's different is in the scope of the last 20, 30, 40 years, this time it's different applies to, well, interest rates trend down, bonds and stocks float up, tech wins everything. Resources don't really matter. We can get it easy. We can get it cheap. If we don't get it here, we can get it there. It's no big deal. We are now in an environment that unless somehow politics and the social stuff we're struggling with resolves itself in the next year or two, we are in a different regime, not in the big scope of things, but in the last few decades.
Right.
But if you take the last 70 years, the last 100 years, this cycle of commodities like underperforming, tech and other things, and financialization, win, and then that inflection point happens. That has happened. That happened in the 30s and 40s. That happened in the 70s, like huge inflection points. We started to see it change again. And I'm blocking my camera. I'm so sorry, fans.
Yeah. You good?
We're started to see that again in 2000, 2001,
Right.
where a lot of like gold and uranium and silver and oil and all that stuff bottomed and tech was peaking and then it changed, right? And then that sort of peaked around 2010, 2011,
Yeah.
right? But if you look at gold as to how it's performed against the S&Ps going back to 2000, well, that looks real different, right? If you go back far enough, it's not this time it's different as in we're putting our heads in the sands and we think trees are going to grow to the sky. That's how extreme general market and tech valuations have become relative to the things that we make the modern world with.
Yeah.
And so some of these moves we're seeing in gold, I'm not saying gold is just going to float upward or silver is just going to float upward with very little volatility to $100, $200, $300. Gold's just going to saunter its way to 25 grand, right? I'm not talking about that. But with volatility, with big swings, it does seem like we're in a regime where you take just the commodity cycle and then you add to it deglobalization, you add to it supply chain securities, you add to it how underfunded the CapEx has been for finding and bringing new mines into production, how unfriendly the regulatory environment is. Like you stack all this stuff up, this cycle for commodities generally and some of the specific ones particularly that are really crucial, tougher to get to, this could be not, oh, that was a good couple of years and then it's back to everything sucking in the resource sector. This could be 10, 20, 30. This could be a longer term play. For instance, uranium is a really interesting one to look at.
Oh, yeah. Uranium's really interesting because uranium nuclear power has declined globally based on irrational fears that are driven by the media. So, and I'm not even going to say traditional media because it's been kind of across the board. So media hyped up a lot of irrational fears around nuclear power, which has crushed the uranium industry. And now I'm reading about Zuckerberg is building 2 data centers. One is starting, he wants to have it running by the end of next year, a gigawatt of power. He's building another one that's starting at a gigawatt of power, and it's going to 5 gigawatts of power. We're talking about a single data center that's sucking down as much power as entire cities.
Yeah.
Who controls the media? These tech giants. Now they need power, so they're slowly shifting the narrative from nuclear's bad to nuclear's great.
How convenient.
Which will drive policy, which will drive, it'll drive policy, it'll drive how people feel about it. And so now that they're leading the sheep back into the green fields of nuclear energy is great and clean and powerful.
Is green now.
And it has been all along.
It is green.
Yeah, it's been green all along. I mean, the incidents, I saw another chart. We talked last time we were together about how many people have been killed in nuclear power accidents compared to just coal mining, the act of coal mining.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a huge difference.
Let alone coal burning and
the
pollution
downstream,
and the cardiovascular incidents that arise from air pollution.
Yep.
That's a whole nother layer on top of that cake.
So I saw a chart that was injuries per million people for different types of power generation. And it looked at all the downstream and everything. So for coal power generation, it was like 10 per million. And then it went down and down and down. And nuclear was like 0.007 per million or something. It was just this incredibly tiny number. But the fact that so much power is going to be needed and the guys who control the narrative are now pro-nuclear, that alone is the most bullish case I can think of.
Well, it's interesting. If I was a tech magnate, and I'm not, probably thank goodness, I think those guys' lives has got to be just like a fever dream, honestly.
No,
with that
I
much
would
attention
not,
and all that.
But
if I were one of those guys, or I worked for them, right, and they said, hey, Burgex, how do we get this level of power? They basically have 2 choices. Unless they're by a really convenient geothermal situation, it's a nat gas kind of classic power plant, or it's SMRs, maybe set up in groups, right? For small modular reactors, nuclear, right? So the really fast, easy one is natural gas,
right?
But the more efficient, cost-effective, low-carbon green solution is nuclear. And China has showed us that they've been building really high-quality, like next-gen, terrific. You can't have a meltdown. If something goes wrong, the system just goes boop and turns itself off, right? Like a computer where it's run out of extra battery and the power's gone off and it just shuts itself down. Like that's what happens now. It's so stinking safe. And they're turning these things out in 1/10 of the time we are because they're focused on get the engineering right. Let's build it the right way with really good controls, and let's not kill ourselves with regulation because we're doing it the right way. We need to move that direction. And if we do, small modular reactors can solve so much of this. And we can build some of the bigger plants like molten salt reactors and some of these other things where the risk is basically non-existent. It's like even if someone bombed it, it would just stop. Right?
And the crazy thing is that's really how they have been for a long time, and they've only gotten safer. We talked about it before, like they melted down Chernobyl very intentionally. And they had to go through a very specific set of shutting off all the safety controls to do this test they were doing. And had they just literally walked away or bombed the control room or done whatever, it would have shut itself down.
Right.
And that's 80s tech. I mean, really 70s tech.
So
rolled forward.
The design,
like,
the
50
design
years
was
now.
poor.
Yeah.
They literally did everything you're not supposed to do, but that's the standard for, hey, this is going to happen with every nuke. No, like it's probably never ever possible to happen again,
Right.
because none of those exist.
Right.
Yeah, it's we've just got to get out of our own way.
Yeah.
Period.
Get out of our own way, and start changing the narrative, right? And people need to honestly just start doing their own homework and stop getting brainwashed so easily. Because I was doing some homework on the nuclear thing because I was interested about it. And, there's been this one out here in Green River that's been trying to get off the ground for a while. And I think it's dead in the water, honestly. But there's a group that has dedicated its entire existence just to brainwash and just to fearmonger that plant specifically. And it's like, come on, you guys, like if you did a little bit of homework, you would see that this one plant is actually going to have more positive effects than negative. And then if you look at even the footprint of a nuclear reactor compared to like solar or the wind turbines, like it's fractions of what it takes. And it's just,
and unlike solar, which has a lifespan, and then we have no idea how to recycle solar panels and the stuff that's in them in a way that's not toxic. We have no idea what to do with that. We don't know what to do with these wind turbines when they go bad and the bearings go out, except bury them somewhere. They're not, it's a beautiful idea that until we can source adamantium, right? Literally an unbreakable substance that will never wear out, until we can figure out how to make those crazy long life, they feel good and they actually have an environmental toll, and they don't really solve, because the wind doesn't always blow, and it doesn't blow in certain areas of the country. And unless you're near the equator, you've got issues with solar. Like Germany tried solar. Oh yeah, we're in Europe and we have cloud cover and not good angles from the sun. This isn't working very well. Like it's good for marginal, but you can't have it for baseload. Any engineer that's going to be honest is like, you can't count on this for baseload power. We need baseload power. Nuclear is by far the best solution for that.
Yeah, and I see hyped a lot of like gravity batteries, and we're going to use this old mine shaft and blocks of concrete to create these, super low tech batteries that'll store wind and solar power for when it goes down. But it's like, that's a neat trick. That's not base load.
Like that's enough if you have a couple of office buildings with normal, like kind of commercial energy use. You can't run a city off that, man.
No
you can
way.
Power maybe a block, and that's it.
Your personal ranch.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun magic trick. It's a cool engineering feat that can't be scaled to the size of gigawatts we need to power civilization.
And we're at a really sketchy point where grids are strained in the United States, especially this summer. A lot of grids are strained. They're within their at or sub where they should be in terms of their reliability, because they need to have an extra like 20% buffer, and I think the national average right now is like 17%. So they're below that. And then we're talking concurrently about adding fleets of electric vehicles and
AI.
building multi-gigawatt data centers.
And if everyone is using AI, and it's a great tool,
And
we are
everyone is now.
remotely using, even though we're not like a data center, we are remotely adding to like AI and all that computing power it needs to figure things out and help us. Yeah, it's only growing.
It's only growing.
Yeah, it'll be it's a convergence of things are already strained, and then we're adding a whole bunch more. So, I mean, back to us and what we actually can help with. Uranium, quite bullish. Copper, always. I mean,
Yeah.
copper's just the base case because you talked earlier about humanity will find substitutions for things if they can. There's some things they can't, but like we've tried to substitute copper for like aluminum wire and things like that. And you know how many people's homes burned down during all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and now they have they have copper plated aluminum wire and things like that that do okay, and there's middle ground, but at the end of the day there's no substitute for copper.
No.
Right.
And
No.
so there's huge opportunities for particularly US copper producers. Which leads me to one of the questions I had for you today was Simon Trott. What do you think about Rio Tinto getting a new CEO?
I don't have an opinion about it. I don't know enough about the new guy. I don't know how different he's going to be. It is interesting that not only Rio Tinto, I think Newmont just had a change at the top. Like there's some interesting changes happening.
With big companies.
My sense is, and fingers crossed this is true, is that the big mining companies and their shareholders are understanding that survival mode, which a lot of these guys operated, is not where we're at right now. They need to be in growth mode. They need to be in how can we do better? How can we do more? How can we continue with the efficiency and the quality, but how can we grow to feed the demand that is clearly on the horizon? Like I think of Robert Friedland. Robert Friedland talks his own book.
Right.
Of course, he's going to promote the thing that he's got bazillions of dollars invested in.
Right.
But he's not wrong when he says the amount of copper we're going to need to mine over the next 30, 40, 50 years is as much copper as we've mined in all of human existence.
And it's
We're
easy
going to
see,
try to
yeah.
do in like half a century or less. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
holy smokes, we aren't understanding what that means in terms of supply constraints. Another really interesting thing that I heard, I was listening to an investing podcast. This guy's a super contrarian investor, and he's talking about in a world where AI and robotics and automation sort of does so much, even things we maybe don't think it can do yet, what's the constraint? The constraint is energy production, and the constraint is still the raw materials
Yep.
to make and produce and maintain the equipment, right? And the data processing and the microchips and all of that stuff. So the constraint is commodities. It's commodities.
Yeah.
It's energy commodities and it's metallic commodities. It's still commodities. Like
Yeah.
it's like, so if you think about if this stuff doesn't play out, there's so much of a tailwind behind commodities just because it's been ignored and unloved and undervalued and underfed. And then if the AI thing does play out, even close to what we think in robotics and all that, it's still the constraint factor.
Yeah.
It's still the thing that's going to be the choke point. So that's what's going to need the money. That's where capital seems to be starting to rotate into. But I still think, in at least a lot of these, it's real early. And it isn't a couple of years. I think it's closer to a couple of decades.
Yeah, so AI is going to replace everything everybody sits down and does at a computer really quickly. That's a couple of years.
Which is kind of cool.
But AI replacing manual robotic tasks, robotics have a long ways to catch up. And the materials, and then these robots, like the dream for the robotics guys, you know, Boston Dynamics and all these other guys, the dream is household housekeeper, the robot housekeeper,
It's like
the
it's like
Jetsons. Who's the Jetsons? Rosie.
yeah, Rosie,
Yeah,
the maid. Yeah,
Rosie,
yeah.
Rosie the maid from the Jetsons. That's the dream for these robotics and AI companies, because you get something that every household will need to buy, and maybe they're $50,000. But you think about it, you know, let's say $50,000 and $1,500 a year worth of maintenance, but it's doing your cooking, your cleaning, basic childcare. That's a no-brainer for me. That's their dream, is to sell those to all these households. We're not there yet. We're
No.
a decade from that or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
But when you get to that point, talk about materials, batteries, and all the raw materials and everything. That'll be really interesting. But in the meantime, like just the AI taking over all the stuff people are sitting down at computers to do, the amount of power that's going to require alone is just astronomical.
And it's the energy generation, hello, nuclear and natural gas in a huge way, and it's transmission infrastructure.
Right.
We need way more. We probably need to roughly double our current grid and upgrade a lot of what's there because of how old it is.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. And we're not even talking about our water infrastructure, which is older than old. And we get these sinkhole videos and it's like, that's water infrastructure that's gone south
Yeah.
because it's so old,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is aggregates. We need to create those new pipes and all that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
All of
Precast.
it.
The amount of lines that we need is just astronomical.
We can't fathom how much stuff we
No,
need to do because it's so out of sight, out of mind for almost all of us.
Just on such a basic level. I mean, thinking about, the electric car initiative, that everyone was so gung-ho on. Like, even if that was like our main focus, that was the only thing we were wanting, right? Like, we'd even talk about data centers, we're not even talking about robotics, it was just cars. It's like, there's no way in hell we could have that type of energy and metal consumption right now. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know, it's just crazy to me, like, to think that, we need all of these materials, we need all of these, new mines, but then we have all of this anti-mining groups and these people who are just like, hell no, you can't have a mine here. But they also want all of this green tech stuff. And it's like, come on. Like,
right.
You gotta
Like everyone,
have a little give here.
everyone's at the rally talking about how evil mining is,
Yeah.
and everyone's got their smartphones in their back pocket, which were made from stuff that was sourced from all over the world,
All over the
including
world.
stuff from the DRC and the children walking around in
it's
toxic
just
mud because
wild.
we don't want to do it the right way here. But the good news is the spotlight's being shined on all that stuff, and it's like we do need this stuff, and we should do it the right way.
We absolutely need to do
We
it
need
the
to
right
move
way.
away from
Yeah.
virtue signaling to no, let's really execute cleanly.
Yep. And the best thing we can do is have those mines in our backyard.
Yes, it's going to be done the right way, and we can oversee it and make sure.
Yeah, especially the aggregates. Those need to be as close to the cities as possible.
Mhm.
We have to find what's the balance there of how do we keep the mines really close, but we keep the nearby residents happy so we can keep the cost of transportation down. As we know, it's the biggest expense in aggregates.
Or
Moving rock is not cheap.
Or we go in one of the rabbit holes you've been on in the last couple of years, which is looking at aggregates recycling, right? Which is
Yeah.
probably something
Yeah.
we will need to look at, because there's a point where it's like, okay, so do we relocate this neighborhood to get at the high quality gravel or sand or whatever that's under there? Right? Like to what extremes do we go to source new material versus repurposing, reusing, right?
And the nice thing about that, and it's one of the things, I mean, putting my libertarian hat back on with the free market, is price drives innovation
Yeah.
in aggregates. And so in these urban centers where the mines are getting pushed out further and further, it's incentivizing aggregate recycling. And it's becoming lucrative and profitable. And it doesn't need to be, they don't rely on carbon credits. They don't rely on external backing and subsidies. It's actually economic to recycle aggregates in a lot of areas. But talking about, like, do we move this neighborhood? In a lot of areas, you can go under it. We can mine aggregates underground just like anything
And
else.
just backfill it and
Yep.
call it a day.
And just room and pillar. There's nice limestone and granite deposits around the country that you can room and pillar, and there's no subsidence, there's no settling on the surface there. And when you're done, it's underground storage space. You can put offices down there, you can store documents, you can build data centers underground.
That would be cool.
So there's interesting ways to do that. So the nice thing is it's something I've been really looking at, but largely I love that it's being driven by the economics and not by subsidies.
That
It makes
goes-
me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes back to the point about China. So one of the things that why I think we need to be a little nationalistic and activist is because the way China has played the game is they haven't let the market really dictate price on a lot of these things. They've monkeyed with the market to be able to sort of like, it's kind of like when the Saudis, in the last 30 years, have been a couple of times where the Saudis basically overproduced, and one of the side effects was it sort of killed U.S. shale for a while.
Yeah.
And then they were allowed to be the market maker again.
Right.
Right? Rockefeller did this, right? When he
Right.
was becoming the guy that owned every oil company and created Standard Oil, he'd overproduce, kill all of his competition, buy their assets. Just kidding. Oil is now back to a market price now that I control everything, right?
Right.
So China is doing that not because they want to make money and be the market maker so that they can charge outrageous fees. They're doing it so they can keep the cost low and so that they can control all the means of production because no one else is competing with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we aren't seeing market prices in rare earths because the market's so distorted by what they're doing. So if to someone in the West, it's like, well, rare earths are cheap. Rare earths are cheap because of the way the game's being played by this big player.
Yep.
So that's why we sort of have to play their game unless we want to get locked out and
Yeah.
not have any power.
Yeah, the economics are so distorted that you can't just do it that way, which is why, I was talking about before, the libertarian in me cries at seeing them put a price floor, the DOD put a price floor on some of these magnet elements, and then also taking a direct stake. But it's what you have to do if you want to have that kind of supply chain, because otherwise the only other thing they could do is force everyone to buy American. That's the only other way. And then they have to, then prices suddenly for the few producers that produce. But it's even too early for that because there's not enough producers. There's no supply.
Well, there's not enough
So the DOD
producers.
shuts down their means of defense.
Yeah, but also there's not enough finished products.
Right.
Yeah. So we're mining here, but we're still sending that raw material, the concentrates, elsewhere.
Right. So it's the
So-
raw materials production
Yeah.
and the refining and the processing
Yeah.
to get it to the finished product.
And that's what we're
Yes.
missing.
That's
Yeah.
we're missing that on so many different commodities too, not just rare earths. How many copper refineries do we have here? The one here in our backyard.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There might be one other one.
And that's not going to supply the U.S.
No.
Not even
No.
close.
So we have a long ways to go.
For sure.
Long ways to go.
So wrapping up, and this is going back a few steps, but we talked about Simon Trott. So he's the new CEO of Rio Tinto, and he's coming over from their iron ore division, which is a cost-cutting, optimization, very margin-conscious part of their business, which also drives 70% of their revenue and profitability. So iron ore is a huge part of the business. So it's interesting because I think there's a bit of a dichotomy. Growth mode, acquisitions, things like that, like Mark Bristow with Barrick. Some of these other companies are really looking at that right now. And then I think Rio Tinto and BHP and some of the real giants in the room are still one step behind. So I think the former CEO of Rio got in fights with the board for being forward thinking and acquisition heavy, especially in lithium and things like that. And he got into trouble. And so I think they're actually taking a step back with Simon and doubling down on, let's be capital conscious, let's defend our margins.
Interesting.
Which is why they took their iron ore division, because that's the division with the lowest, it's a low price commodity. It's bulk, it's low price. So he is tuned, he's very margin sensitive. So he's looking at literally like 25 cents a ton on every product to how can we shave, even 10 cents, whereas their other divisions aren't thinking that way. So they brought him in, and I think he's going to be great for that. I don't know about the growth and things like that. I think they're still one step behind. So as you talked about with the Friedlands and even the Bristows and, Andrew Forrest and some of these others that are looking to expand internationally, start up new projects, do more greenfielding, I think there's going to be an opportunity to get ahead of some of these other guys. And I could be completely wrong about Simon, but to me, it signals when they take the guy over the most capital conscious segment of their business and put him in charge as CEO. That's what they're looking to do. Now, for the sake of the company and the shareholders, I hope they increase their dividend, build a war chest, and start looking at acquisitions and consider some very good ones that they've really thought through. And I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing, but I think there's a bit of a dichotomy where some are going in a more like Bristow's like, we're greenfielding, we're acquiring, we're getting a lot more aggressive. And then Rio Tinto's like, our last CEO was a little too aggressive. We're going to bring in somebody who's a little more capital conscious, thinks about, cutting costs and stuff. And they are across the company, and they started prior to this announcement. And look, I don't think Jacob got too far awry of the board, but I think they were unhappy with some of his acquisitions of lithium and things like that. So
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, hopefully they'll have the cost-conscious guy at the top, but they'll still have directors and executives that do have an eye on intelligent acquisitions and intelligent growth. Because a commodity company that isn't keeping its pipeline full in an intelligent way is basically just whistling past the graveyard.
Yep.
Interesting thing too, I thought it was a really fascinating story. You see that story where like the Mali, Barrick and Mali, I think the government, the new guys, the junta that kind of sort of took over Mali, showed up in helicopters and left Barrick's facility with over $100 million in gold bullion.
Yeah.
And it's like resource nationalization, it's happening.
So I wonder how much of that $100 million makes its way to the country's treasury.
Probably not a lot, but hopefully, maybe these guys are true believers and they're going to do the right thing for the masses.
Yeah, I mean,
it's probably going to wind up
happen.
in some offshore jurisdiction, Liechtenstein or Switzerland or whatever.
Yeah, I hate to see that because we all know how that ends.
Right.
We all know how that ends. Barrick will be back. They'll be asked to come in and clean it up and save the jobs and get into production again.
Yeah.
Yeah. While taking a huge hit.
Yeah, I think about the changes that we're seeing politically, the changes that we're seeing in terms of regulations, big beautiful bill. Like, I don't know a lot about it, but it is clear that they're trying to at least improve the environment for resource sectors. Generally, it's probably not enough, but it's at least it's moving in the right direction, and it isn't just lip service. Right. Although they have sort of gutted the BLM, which was the wrong place to do Doge employee cuts. That place already didn't have enough, so we'll see what happens with that. But if you just look at the 20-year charts on copper, platinum, palladium, gold, silver, it's like something's going on.
Yeah.
Something is going on, and it sure looks interesting. And I'm sure stoked to be working with our team at this time in history, being a part of what I think is like a serious wake-up call.
Yeah.
And a real regime change in so many elements of macro.
Yep.
And how it's going to play out through the resource industry.
We got our surfboard, it's waxed and it's out there, and
we're ready to go.
We're paddling along and we're just waiting.
We've been doing our cardio and our push-ups. We're ready.
We're ready. I mean, I don't think we could be any more positioned. I mean, if I had $1 million, maybe I'd go hire like all the young, bright geos and engineers I know and just keep them on payroll. But I think we've got a good network and a good reputation where we can scale up rapidly when needed. So
Absolutely.
it's exciting. There's a lot of stuff going on, and yeah, it's been good having you back on the show. Feeling a couple of raindrops here, so I guess it's nature giving us a nudge to wrap it up. But any parting thoughts?
No, I love this stuff, and again, I love being able to talk to people who share my interest and passion for this sector, because it is so unloved and it's so stinking critical.
Right.
If anyone that's listening to this has not read, what's that word? Ed Conway, Material World. Material
Yes.
World by Ed Conway. It reads like a spy thriller, and it's the world of commodities, and it is fascinating. Even people, my dad read it, and he's not into commodities. He's like a physicist and a tech guy, loves it. Like, it is fascinating stuff.
I'll back that up with that's a good one, and then there's another one called The World for Sale, and it's about the birth of all the commodity trading houses and how Glencore was born and all the other big commodity trading houses, and across all commodities, but it focuses really heavily on minerals and oil and gas and things. And it's very interesting because it talks about how they were born out of these super cycles. The first one was the shutting down of the USSR, and these just rogue individual guys flew in there, made friends with oligarchs, and took over privatized segments of these industries, and then made ridiculous amounts of money.
Created the
trading,
market and the ability to trade in the
doing
market.
commodity trading, and then how they play the trader. They work with governments all over the world to help them export, import, get around sanctions, all these different things. And then on the flip side, how that was a huge boom, and then China woke up and started growing, and how that all of the major trading houses went to China, and China said, "You're ours now. Get us everything we need. We don't care how much it costs. We need everything.
Yeah.
Copper, iron ore, coal, uranium, everything. Get
Yeah.
it now." And things like even grains and things like that. Like it talks about who's that giant Cargill, how Cargill was born. And they started and still are a massive commodity trader.
Like Trafigura and all
It's called
those
the
guys.
World for Sale. And I'll put that up as well as that other book. But
Okay, this is my
fascinating stuff.
parting thought. Something that I think is really interesting in terms of market making and global pricing for commodities and what that mechanism looks like, and going back to the theme of this time it's different, is for a long time, London set the global price for gold and silver and a lot of commodities.
Yeah.
Via the London Metals Exchange and the LBMA, that they basically, so those commodities, precious metals particularly, had a global price. It wasn't regional, it was a global price that was set through that market mechanism and that exchange. That is breaking down hardcore.
Yeah.
The LBMA is running out of inventory, and all of the flow and the pricing power is moving towards Asia and China and India. And it may even get fractured where instead of it being a global price, we may start to see regional pricing based on availability, which could get really interesting. Wow. So silver isn't $40 everywhere, theoretically. Right. Silver's 45 in Shanghai, and depending on needs, and it's 50 over there, and maybe it's 40 over there, and it's gonna get real interesting. It's gonna get real interesting because, again, deglobalization and pricing power, and where is the real flow? The real flow is going through the East right now.
Right.
So they're gonna have a lot more control, and they value this stuff, and they're hoovering it up. It's just fascinating. That is another signpost that the way things were is breaking, and this new mechanism is forming, and we don't really know how it's gonna look and exactly what it's gonna mean, but it is for sure gonna be different.
And things are changing really fast.
Super fast.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exciting to be on the forefront of it, for sure. as a small business.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So good to be here.
It's good to be here. All right, we'll ride that wave.
Thanks for watching episode 25 with Chris Guenther. We'll see you next time.